Alright guys, welcome back to the Road to 1000 Rapid ELO on chess.com. So last time I recorded we were sitting at around like 600 ELO. Let's go ahead, double check, see what we are at now. We are at 704 Rapid ELO. We have been pushing up the ladder rapidly, if you will. Sorry, that was dumb as hell. But we've been making progress, and I have like three absolute haymakers of games. These three right here. Were just not really the not really the best games. I do have to say they were kind of just like they were like a drunken street fight of a chess game. All three of these. Um, so and I apologize if my voice is a little bit fucked up right now. I am currently just waking up, and it is like 6 o'clock in the morning. I played like two games of chess, hit 700 elo, and was like, let's get to it. Let's start hustling. So we start with a in the black position with a Carl Khan. And I've been struggling with this position a lot because I wind up just losing so much space. And this opponent in particular just does like 20 moves, only pawn moves. Like literally, I think they were, what, 9 moves of just straight pawn moves, dude. Like I swear to God, I don't know how I won this. Like I struggle positionally where there is no space. So he just keeps coming. He's just got the fucking the numbers just running down the lines, right? And I'm losing space very quickly here. Um, so I'm looking for a way to break through, and I can't really see any. And apparently this here was a quite a big blunder closing the position. The AI or the computer wanted me to take here, which I didn't really like opening up this file for certain tactics to be able to get in the future. So I just closed the position here, taking a little bit of space here just so I can maybe do some maneuvering. But as you can see, this bishop is just, it's eating fucking bricks right now. Like just horrible. This knight as well would have to hop here, then hop here, and then finally hop out to go do something. Um, so fast forward a couple moves, I kick out his queen. I am desperately trying to take some space just so I can develop some sort of game here. Because right now I don't have any sort of a position here. There's nothing. I moved the knight back preemptively to be able to, in the future, develop here, and also protect this pawn by the discovered vision of the queen here. Yeah, this was just a positional game of me just scraping for space. And later in the game, you will see I drastically blunder. Um, and I wind up winning a knight here. I don't know if it was a miscalculation or just some sort of a sacrifice that he thought he could possibly get in on this side, which I see now that he could play rook here, and then possibly bring in the queen in some sort of fashion to be able to get into my position. And I wouldn't have really had much to be able to respond to this. It would have been hard to defend, but we get a position looking like this where there's just two basically open files here on both sides. I have this pawn that is a liability right now because it is very difficult for me to defend, especially if he brings more pieces into the equation. And at this point in the game, I needed a bit of a Hail Mary. I needed to get some counterplay. The computer, again, did not like this move and thought I just gave up a bishop. But at the same time, I needed something. I did not have any escape from this. The only way out was some sort of um, some counterplay on this side of the board, which I did not have really. And even now, after taking it under some analysis, I'm not really seeing a way um, that I would be able to immediately uh, get out of this position because everything was just covered. Every square was covered. Um, so I sacrifice my bishop. The plan here is that if he takes, then I have this move with a check on his king, and he can defend here. He can defend here, here. Couple ways to defend, but the point is that I am in his position. That was the entire plan, and he takes, and he defends with the bishop. I just take this free pawn, and now this rook is under fire, and I'm threatening a lot of stuff because this rook is pretty active. I can lift the rook, and then I have some plans here. I have some plans of attack, and I feel like this was the main turning point in the game. He takes the pawn. That was kind of gluing my position together momentarily. So he's into my position, but the only difference here is I have a queen and he has a rook in my position. So I take his rook. He checks. I take because he kind of just malfunctioned at this point after pushing all of his pawns across the entire board, just throwing every single pawn forward. I don't think he kind of thought he was playing a game of checkers rather than a game of chess because he doesn't know how to use any of his other pieces in coordination. Um, so he goes down here, just kind of subtly hanging a rook. So I take that sucker. He goes here trying to take my free knight there, and I just take with check. I thought this was the best move. There was probably something. I mean, that was probably the most forcing move in the position. Obviously with check, and he didn't really have any ways to block, so he genuinely just had to move. I check here, and I'm looking for some sort of a ladder's mate. I know that there probably is a ladder's mate in this position. I could have even had one way back here if I had decided to ignore the threat here, move up, and then here, and that would have been a ladder's mate. But I just saw an easier option. My 700 ELO brain just was like, oh, I take knight, and I won his queen. Because essentially the only other option he had was to move here, losing his bishop, which obviously isn't a really valiant option in this position. And you'll see that 4 of my pieces are just sitting on the back rank. This was an interesting game, and I take his queen, beautiful, and at this point I would have been able to just march into his position, maybe move like rook here, queen here. You can see he just didn't have anything. His king was completely stuck in the center of the board here. So just an interesting game. I do very poorly in dynamic games where the opponent just pushes pawns and takes so much space. And that is why I don't know why I play the Caro Kann, because you have to deal with a very delicate position with very little to almost no space where you can't develop your pieces to their natural squares. You can't really move things where you want them to. So I'm going to go ahead show this game if we want to. So I do my go back to my normal plan here, which is the accelerated London, and I calculate it takes takes. But also I didn't really like the idea of doubling my pawns, so I just decided to slide back in this position. Um, Again, the computer likes to take here, damaging my pawn structure. But ultimately, in the long term, after I move these pieces out and castles, I would have easy um, development and attack potential on his queen side. So I just slide the bishop back. He plays queen here, check, and I was like, okay, well, this should probably be an easy game after he's just doing all sorts of interesting things here with his queen and not developing any sort of other piece on the board. Um, and I kind of give up this pawn. I saw it a little late in the position. Well, quite late because, it was up for grabs for quite a while. Um, but I calculated here, or here, I think, that that shouldn't be an issue. Um, because, yes, I am giving up a pawn, but I am developing my knight, protecting and linking my rook and my queen. Um, and I am still very close to castling, as he is not. He has a pawn move and that, but he's probably not going to want to castle here because of his weak pawn structure. From him just kind of pushing into the center, trying to attack my pawn here. Um, so takes. He goes here. I plant my rook somewhat in the center here, and this pawn is weak, quite significantly. Um, he just takes, and he's uh, making bounds and leaps into my position. And that is what he does here. He does not take back for some reason, and he kind of just. I can't explain this move, just maybe taunting me with a free piece, thinking that he's on top of the world here. With his positional value, which, yes, he did have a nice position before giving up this bishop, and then I have a lot of attacking opportunities. I think his idea was that after I move in here, he would be forking my bishops. But I have a simple move, knight here, protecting both of my pieces. As you can see, that is what I did in this position. Really one of the only nicer moves. It would have been a little bit interesting to see him push his pawn. Then I take, I just trade off the knight, knowing that he can't take all of my pieces and one of them is protected. So I dart out of the position. He castles, which I feel like was a little bit of an inaccuracy at this point. He probably should have, not damaged his pawn structure like this by pushing his pawn. But I mean, he didn't really have any other options, and obviously that was probably the better move considering these two files are completely open for me, and it would have been very easy to formulate an attack on that side of the board. And I start lifting my rooks, or my rook in this position, and completely give up my bishop. I think I didn't even see that. My board vision at this time in the morning is quite horrible. I get very bad tunnel vision, and I kind of just fall asleep halfway through my games, quite frankly. So I sacrifice my my queen here, and he made a very, very bad mistake. He did not take. I feel like taking in that position would have been very, very good for him. My idea is that I would have been able to come over here with the rook with some tempo with a check, and he would have had to go either direction. and I would have been able to do something like castles, pulling my other rook into the position and having some sort of a fighting chance, even though he was up a full queen. Now he checks me here, and the only it would have been a lot smarter to I don't know, not lose my queen or not lose my rook here in the corner. But I played this like an absolute idiot and just moved the queen or the king in hopes that I could have attacking possibilities on the other side of the board here, which I did long term. You can fast forward a couple moves, and he kind of just dances around and checks me a couple times. And you know what's funny about this? You know what's funny about this position right here is the fact that he is completely and utterly hanging his queen, for the exception of a rook. Still a fairly nice trade considering I was uh, out a queen a couple moves prior. Is that I saw that the queen sees my rook. And I was like, oh yeah, my rook's defended, it's fine. But I didn't see that my rook also sees my queen. I don't even ask my thought process on this. I just, yeah, it was depressing. Now, the second time that he hangs his queen, I find it. Um, it took me two whole times that he hung his queen for me to be able to see it. Very sadly, and unfortunate for me. But over the long run, it worked out. I would have had pretty nice attacking possibilities with takes. Even a check here, forcing the queen out here. If I didn't even move the rook in the first place, and it was still here, and he would have been tucked back in this corner after a pawn move like that. I'd have easily been able to checkmate him in the center of the wait. Okay, I'm just stupid. I'm gonna stop talking now and move on to the next game after I realize that the rook is staring directly at that. Um, but ideas like taking the pawn and then taking the other pawn would have been an easy checkmate. So now we have the third and final game. This video is getting pretty long, so I'm just going to skim through this one. This one was a little bit more of a positional game and a little bit of a better game. I start with the Carl Khan. Takes. He moves his bishop with a check. I just move into the position with the knight. I commonly like to do this, is just kind of linking these pawns. So if he takes, I mend my structure quite well for this Carl Khan. And we move into a position where he's moving his queen early, and I punish this drastically by just kind of beating around his queen, and then ultimately taking in the center and winning his queen, his queen through a, what would this be considered, a skewer, a pin? So I pin his queen, move my bishop out of danger here. A lot more of a positional game than the other ones have been. And he just kind of abandons the game after losing a queen, and he's like, I'm probably not going to win this one. And that is very, very true for him, because I had ideas like here, making a move somewhere, and moves like here, taking, and then ultimately getting into the position pretty well there. So I'm probably going to leave it there. The next push is going to be 800 ELO, and yeah, so far so good. We're making progress with bounds and leaps, and I'll leave it there.